Reserve will purchase treasury bills at least. Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. Had a little technical difficulty there with the music. We did not get a musical introduction, so we're going to just start the show off right away. Sorry for the delay. Today is November 18th, 2019. And tonight's topic is yet another JP Morgan gold and silver trader has been charged with manipulation. Now, this is not the first time, as we mentioned, that a JP Morgan trader has been charged with manipulation. What I want to do tonight is go through some of the types of manipulation, because a lot of people, when they hear this, they think, this is it. We're off to the races. We've now proven there's manipulation and this ends it. And now gold and silver set to skyrocket. Game over, game changer. Nothing could be further from the truth. There's a difference between manipulation, which I call, this is garden variety manipulation. It happens in all markets. It happens in copper. It happens in all commodities. Whenever there's a market, it can be manipulated. It will be manipulated. Now, there are a lot of people who deny market manipulation, and they say, see, this proves it. No, I think we're dealing with an issue of terminology. The people that say there's no manipulation, they're either idiots or they're not defining their terms properly. I think what they mean when they say there's no manipulation, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, because obviously there's manipulation in all markets. And it's impossible for there not to be. If there's all that money at stake, there will always be people trying to manipulate markets. I think what they mean is that there is no coordinated effort by any governmental entity or too big to fail bank in coordination with or on its own with a governmental entity to suppress the price of precious metals. Now, that's a very important distinction between manipulation and suppression. Now, suppression is a form of manipulation, but manipulation in and of itself doesn't mean suppression. Let's see what we got. We got Ken Sting is here. Greetings, stackers, mugging for life. And Jake was asking whether we were going to hear from Mario or Bernie today. Let's just quickly clear that up. I'm going to have to contact Mario and find out what his status is on the show. But Bernie has clearly told me something along the lines that, unless I get a living wage and I'm paid for back time, then I'm not appearing on your show. Something like that, he said. So, Bernie needs to be paid. If you want to get Bernie back on the show, maybe you become a Smaulgld patron. You donate via PayPal. I may not give him the money anyway, but subscribe star. But I guess if we get a little extra money, I can afford to have him around, and maybe I'll stiff him and not give him any money. Now, Mario, you're out of a job now, right? And that's right, because the monetary policy no longer needs me. It has Christine Lagarde. And do you want to be paid too to be on the show? Of course. I mean, if I'm not going to be getting a salary from the European Central Bank and I cannot print the money myself, of course, so I'm going to need to be paid. Well, I don't know, Mario. I'm not sure we need to have you on the show either, but if the people want you on, I guess they're going to also have to donate some money. So I'll keep you in mind, Mario, but otherwise I think I can handle the show myself. All right, let's get back to this manipulation concept. So suppression is the real thorn in the side of gold and silver bugs. That's the problem, not manipulation. When people get all excited that somebody got arrested or somebody got charged for manipulation and now it's all over and it's going to end, no, that's never going to end. So let's talk about what happened. What the news is today. U.S. charges another JP Morgan executive with alleged market manipulation. Yeah, this is part of a group of them that I think from 2008 to 2016 were mostly doing a lot of spoofing. And, a spoof is you place a bid or an order, and you say you're going to buy X amount, you're going to sell X amount, and a lot of people see it, and because you're JP Morgan, or they think you're a big player, they see an order in for a certain amount, everyone starts to follow that order, and the person who's placed the order says, I ain't going to do it. And then all of a sudden the market goes in the other direction because it looked like there was a big order for a buy or a big order for a sell-in. Didn't happen. And then all that money that was chasing the whale now has to chase it the other way. Now what this does, it is a form of suppression in a way, not because they always spoof to the downside. If you spoof to the upside and then you pull the bid, now all of a sudden everyone's scrambling to go short. So what happens is the type of suppression that could happen from spoofing is that people lose trust in the markets. Now that's true with anything though. Anytime people feel that markets are manipulated, they're going to stay away. In fact, today I saw, it's not really manipulation, but any distrust. I saw that Indians think that gold is the third best investment you can have. There was savings accounts, and then there was, what was the second one? It was savings accounts and, I think it was life insurance or something like that. Anyway, they think very highly of gold as an investment. This doesn't mean, I'm not talking about just gold for jewelry, but just gold as a pure investment. And I think half of Indians said it's a good deal. That was their number one choice. And savings accounts were number one for about 74%. But one of the things that keeps Indians out of the gold market, they say, is counterfeiting, because they don't want to get shafted buying some piece of gold that's not real. It's the same thing when you invest in markets. A lot of people stay away from the gold and silver markets, even the paper markets, because they think they're manipulated. So that is a form of suppression. However, back to this particular case, they're not charged with manipulating the price of silver to suppress the price. They're just charged with spoofing in order to make a profit. Now remember, if you're just a guy at JP Morgan and you have a job there and you're making a few $100,000 a year in salary and then $1 million or $2 million trading, you're not really involved. You don't really care about a grand conspiracy to suppress the price of silver. That's not not your monetary incentive. Your monetary incentive is to, let's say, steal, is to generate as much in trading profits as you possibly can, and they'll do that any way they can. They can get away with it, and they'll spoof on the upside, spoof on the downside. What these people are doing, unless they've been directed to do this for a particular purpose, then all they're doing is trying to make themselves some money. Now, it does have the impact of harming the precious metals markets because it pulls some trust out of it, but this happens in every market. And one thing you're not going to get in this ever is there's not going to be a memo from the U.S. Treasury Secretary to Jamie Dimon, and then Jamie Dimon instructs his traders to suppress the price of gold or silver. That you're not going to see. So you can't infer when you have traders like this, because it's not just JP Morgan. There's been many other cases of these banks manipulating the price of silver in this way, price of gold in this way, through this spoofing. So this is not the same thing as having a smoking gun where you have a coordinated effort by a too big to fail bank whose purpose is to suppress the price of silver. Now, besides, I think what's more damaging than spoofing, because again, spoofing can happen in every market. I got it. I got the bid. I got it. I'm going long. I ain't got it. And then the market comes down, or the reverse. You're going short and then you go long. What's more troubling to me, and in these cases are harder to prove, is when a trader decides at 2 a.m, you know what? It's time to just dump a lot of contracts on the market. Why? Just because. Now, it never really happens on the upside. You don't see somebody at 2 a.m. decide, you know what? I'm just going to buy a lot of long contracts and drive the price up. It's almost inevitably a short position. Now, that is price suppression. It's a form of manipulation, But it clearly, you see it, the price has gone up for a few days and all of a sudden it's like, no, this can't happen. Now, even though that's suppression, courts are very reluctant to say that it was done to suppress the price. Why? Well, because when a trader makes a trade, what a court doesn't want to do is get involved in deciding what's a good trade and what's a bad trade. Because if they did, they wouldn't be judges, they'd be traders. So judges have rules, legal precedent, that they don't make business judgments. They don't get involved in whether this was a dumb move, this was a smart move, who in their right mind would sell 4,000 tons of gold in 5 minutes at 2 in the morning. They don't get involved in that. And for that reason, someone can sell large amounts of silver contracts, large amounts of gold contracts, and just say, I lost a little money, so what? All right, then it's down to that particular trader. They lost the money. Now, it does beg the question, who's that stupid? Why would somebody decide to unload all of their, or large amounts of, or even just naked short, meaning they never had it in the first place? Why would they do that? Well, it's a rhetorical question, and the answer is because they're manipulating. The problem is it's hard to prove. And therein lies the rub. So these types of cases where they're spoofing up and down, let's go smash silver, that's not going to stop anything. In fact, they can arrest these people, they can fine these people, they can throw them to jail. You'll have spoofing going on forever. Because the other part about spoofing is, if you're a trader, you can have legitimate reasons to say, "Ooh, I'm not making that trade. I had it lined up, but I don't want to do that." Maybe one of the reasons you don't want to do it is you see everybody's following your trade, and you say, "Okay, I got to stop this. I want to move out of this trade." And actually, even if it wasn't intentional, let's say you set up a trade, you want to go long, you see everybody going long, and you realize, "Oh, everyone's following me. Well, I can make a lot of money off of this. All I got to do is pull my bid and go short right away, and I'll front run them down the other way." So it's hard even to get people on spoofing. It's going to be very hard to get the traders, and there'd never be a paper trail on this, that somehow there is some entity, at least, not a government entity or too big to fail bank entity, that is there to purposely suppress the price of metals. Now, do they have an incentive to suppress the price of metals? You betcha. Central banks, too big to fail banks, they know that their fiat dollars, or their whatever fiat currency they have, is really no match for any fixed commodity that's in demand like gold or silver, especially gold. And therefore, they need to make sure, and what's interesting is they can use dollars, which they can print at will, to short a limited issued commodity like gold or silver, and thereby keep the price down. But can you prove they're doing that? Absolutely not. But you can prove it by the laugh test. You can prove it by, it kind of seems by the preponderance of evidence that's what they're doing. But in order to get them on a criminal, it's not going to happen. They're not going to leave a paper trail. It may be just they understand that they're doing this. It's possible, I doubt it, that they're not doing that at all. But it just seems that there's too much circumstantial evidence, and it's all in that one direction. But again, distinguish purposeful suppression of gold and silver prices versus garden variety manipulation, which happens in the stock market, the bond market. It happens in the copper market. It happens all the time. And when you catch people doing it, doesn't mean other people aren't going to continue to do it. They're going to cover it up in different ways. And it also doesn't mean that they are suppressing the price. They may be enhancing the price. They may be going long. They may be going short. It doesn't matter when you're spoofing. You're just there to extract from the trading platform. And it doesn't have to be gold or silver. The real issue, again, is when the trading is done purposefully to suppress the price, not just purposely to make some cash. Now, we've seen, there have been, I don't want to leave you the impression that there haven't been documented cases, actual examples of manipulation on the suppression side. There absolutely has been. obvious one is in 1934, the United States Congress signed the Gold Reserve Act, and they said the price of gold is $35. Well, that's market suppression right there. Price is not going up. Price is not going down. It's $35 an ounce per government. That's price fixing. And it stated that price from 34 to 71. Well, if gold was the backing for the Bretton Woods international monetary system, where the dollar was supposedly backed by gold, and any central bank who was a signatory to the agreement could bring their gold back to the U.S. and bring their dollars back to the U.S. and get gold at $35 an ounce, well, then you have a fixed price of gold set by the United States Congress. Now, what happened in that particular arrangement from 1934 to 1971 was, as world trade grew and the gold supply didn't grow nearly as fast, the obvious way that you can keep gold at the center of a monetary system is by letting the gold price go higher. There's not enough gold at the current price. Well, think back 1934, the difference in the economy and the growth of the world economy from 1934 to 1971 was enormous, and yet the amount of gold didn't really increase that much. Remember, Russia wasn't contributing to the global economy because they were part of the Soviet Union, and they were also a major gold producer. China wasn't producing any gold at the time. Most of the gold that was coming to market from 1934 to 1971 was from South Africa, and they just couldn't keep up the pace, and the United States refused to allow the price of gold to go higher. So the natural market was paying more, the free market in other parts of the world, more than $35 an ounce for gold, and that's when, fully documented, the London Gold Pool got together and tried to manipulate the price of gold lower. It got very expensive, and they couldn't keep the $35 price. Became irrelevant because they got rid of the Bretton Woods agreements in 1971, and therefore there was no more need to keep the price of gold at $35 an ounce, other than not to create a panic. That's another issue, how they came up with the petrodollars, and they tried to put the backing of the dollar on the need for countries to have dollar reserves in order to buy oil from Saudi Arabia. That arrangement is pretty much irrelevant today, given that Saudi Arabia is no longer the world's #1 oil producer. The United States is, and is also the larger oil exporter, but also because an entire ecosystem is developed around U.S. dollars. The demand for dollar today has got nothing to do with oil. All these people talking about end of the petrodollar and end of dollar hegemony. No, the reason the dollar is a big deal today is not because, obviously it's not because it's backed by gold, and has nothing really to do with Saudi Arabia and the petrodollars. It has to do with the dollar has developed a life of its own over the last 30 years as a reserve currency, as the currency for international trade, and also as a currency for sovereign entities and domestic companies and foreign companies to issue debt in. And that creates demand for the dollar. You issue dollar-denominated debt, you need dollars to pay it back. So that creates a virtuous cycle or unvirtuous cycle for the need for dollars. So there are many times when we've had manipulation of the price of gold and silver. Congress, Lyndon Johnson famously said when they took the silver out of the coinage that do not hoard these coins. He said, if anybody has any idea of hoarding our silver coins, let me say this. Treasury has a lot of silver on hand. I don't even know how Lyndon Johnson spoke, so I'm just doing kind of a Texas accent. It's probably pretty bad. It can be and it will be used to keep the price of silver in line with its value in our present silver coin. There will be no profit in holding them out of circulation for the value of their silver content. Well, basically, Johnson was saying at the time, they had a silver hoard and they were going to flood the market and keep the price of silver where it was. So it's not that governments haven't done it and haven't done it overtly, and I'm sure they do it covertly. It's just that these cases, these JP Morgan cases where some trader is spoofing, it's an entirely different animal. And I'm not saying that there's not price suppression going on. I'm just saying this is not an example of it. The central banks, remember the gold agreements that they had? They had 4 of them starting back in around 1998. Greenspan said in sworn testimony in 1998, central banks can and will manipulate the gold market if necessary. So he says central banks stand ready to lease gold in increasing quantities should the price rise. So it's not that they don't do it. It's just that when people think that you finally got them and it's all going to stop. No, this is not the case. That's all I want to make people understand today is that these JP Morgan cases or Deutsche Bank cases, this has nothing to do with central banks or working to suppress the price of gold and silver. And again, they do work to suppress the price of gold and silver. But this isn't the case. And we've seen the examples of when they've done it. And I think right now they're not as interested in doing it. I think they almost allow the market to do it for them. Because remember, they're manipulating other markets. And by manipulating the treasury market, by manipulating the asset purchase agreements, by manipulating interest rates, they actually create a situation where people will pour money into stocks because while gold may outperform the dollar most years and will outperform almost every other fiat currency, it's having a hard time outperforming the stock market indexes. You see, so they don't have to manipulate gold as much as long as they're manipulating the stock market higher. That's a very important point. So they're not directly manipulating gold right now, in my opinion. What they're doing is they're manipulating the stock market, the bond market, and they're putting the risk on in a way where it wouldn't normally be there. If you didn't have central bank intervention right now, and the companies had to be valued like the way they used to be 40 years ago, gold would be like $40,000 probably. All right. Well, that's all I wanted to talk about today. Let's see what you guys are saying in the comment section. All right. Let's see. What do we have in the comment section? You know, the comments are also loading very slowly. It's very hard sometimes to get them up here. But let's see what we have here. Mintmark says, I'm pretty sure Seamus would do it for a pint. Yeah, I think we can have Seamus on. Seamus will do the... Yeah, I'll see if Seamus is around. He can do the countdown tonight and see how things are going. All right, well, unless... I don't have a lot of comments tonight, so Seamus, are you available? Yes, I'm available. If you want me to do the countdown, I'll do it gladly for you. You don't even have to stand me a pint. All right, Seamus, do you know how to count? Well, I'm not that much in the bag at the moment, so I think I can count. I think I can count down backwards, although it's easier for me to count from 1 to 10. So you wanted me to count backwards, do you? Yes, it goes like 10, 9. Yeah, I get it. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4. No. You got to count down backwards, and then when you get to 0, Bernie used to say 1. When he got to 1, he said 1%, and then 0. And then you say goodnight. Can you do that, Seamus? Yeah, I'll give it a try. Okay, so right now we're at 10, and then we're going to go to 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Do I say 1% now? Yeah, that's right. Go ahead. 1%, 0. Everybody, have a good night. And I'm going back to the bar and stand Louis a nice big old pint of Guinness. Have a good night, everybody. All right, Seamus, thank you, and have a good night, everybody. We'll see you soon.